didn't have to look at the money. I could go out and swipe my card whenever I wanted to. I didn't have to check a bank account. And at the beginning, it all sounded really great. I mean, I got a good life. I don't ever look at money. I'm just spending, you know, and I would call him and he'd say it's there and I would go shop. But then one day I went to go actually look at it and he was like, well, what are you looking at it for? And I'm like, well, because I wanted to make sure, you know, my money was going in, you know, the right places. He was like, well, if I needed an accountant, I would have asked you. And that broke out into the fight. So he ended up strangling me. And I did not think, I swear, God is my witness. There was somebody that night praying for me because I did not think that I was going to make it out. I had started gasping for air because my airways were closing. And by the grace of God, my daughter walked in the room. And that's the only thing that stopped that whole situation. And that's to go to the question that somebody asked me if my daughter had ever seen anything. Yes, she did. She did see it. And I can just remember after that situation happening, my daughter asked me, she was like, Mom, she was a baby. Now imagine a 3-year-old asking you, Mom, are you scared to fight a boy? And I was like, no, she was like, because if I have to fight a boy, you know, I'm just going to be like, pow, pow. You know, she's a kid. She just demonstrate. But it reduced me to tears because I felt like she was asking me, why didn't you fight back? Yeah, but I couldn't. You know what I mean? I couldn't fight back. But her coming into the room is what saved me.
And how did you explain to her what that was, what she saw?
So at the time, I didn't explain. I just was thinking she's young. She probably won't remember. But a teacher called one day when she was a little older and said, you know, your daughter called and told me, you know, that you got strangled last night. And I'm like, what? That happened years ago. But it was still in her memory. You know what I mean? So, and she was crying in the class like it had just happened. So I had to leave work and go up to the school to get her. And then I started trying to explain to her on her level of understanding. You know, I didn't want to pour on adult situations onto a child. So at the time, I said, you know, adults make bad decisions. You know, he made a bad decision. And that was kind of how I left it then. I said, but I'm fine, you're fine, everybody's fine, and we're safe, you know. And, you know, as time got on and she started getting older, I was able to go a little bit deeper into details. But yeah.
And at some point after that, is that when you made the pact with your girlfriend that you both were going to leave? What brought you to saying that you were going to leave?
Unfortunately, no. Okay. That was not it.
So you had a broken wrist before, you had been strangled, and
I've been dumped out on the highway.
Dumped out on the highway.
Dumped out on the highway. You know, so when I hear these things, they sound, you know, obviously horrific. But I'm like, how did I even put myself through that, knowing that I had a place to go? My mother would open her door to me at any moment. I could have just went there, but I wanted us to all be together. But yes, I've been dumped out on the highway, left there and had to call friends to come and get me in Ohio somewhere. So just mean, cruel, abusive things. And one of your other listeners had a question about, did I lose myself? And I want to touch on that because I did lose myself, because apparently I had forgotten who I was because I was dealing with that stuff. And I think sometimes, you know, you do lose yourself. You start to believe the lies. You start to live in defeat. And when a person is living in defeat, they already feel like they have lost the fight, you know? Yeah. And the turning point for me getting myself back together is that story. When, even though I had left, I still wanted to go back. I was still hoping me leaving was going to help him realize that, I'm gonna go get help because I really want this situation to work out. But after that situation happened with the young lady dying, I'm like, is this really what I want? But I can remember him coming to pick me up from my mom's house to tell me that he wanted to work some things out. And I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe the light bulb finally came on.
Mm-hmm.
And he put a gun on the console. And he was like, is this, you want to leave? He was like, you want to leave? You want to work this out, or do you want to leave? He was like, which way do you want it? And I'm like, well, why is the gun up there? I mean, if I say that I don't want to stay, are you going to kill me? I mean, I didn't say that to him. This is what I was thinking in my spirit. But I started praying. And I just started praying under my breath. And I was just like, Lord, please get me out of this situation, because I didn't know how it was turning. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what's the gun for? And he was like, it's just there. I'm just asking you a question. Do you want to work it out? So he pulls over on the side of the freeway, and I'm like, yeah, I do want to work it out, because I figured that was the right answer to say. And then he took me back to my mother's house, and I left. But I knew at that moment, it's a wrap. There is no way I can go back to that situation, period. And sometimes people ignore all of those red flags, and they lead you there, but you can get out early. Like, get yourself a plan, devise a plan, and work that plan so you can be safe. Be safe for yourself, for your kids, for your sanity, like you said in the promo.
Yeah. And I want to just double back, because some people have just joined us, and those that didn't join at the beginning, we started at the outset with Keila describing that her and a dear friend made a pact that they would both leave their relationships, meaningful relationships for them, but abusive relationships for them. And Keila decided to leave, and the other person didn't. And her husband murdered her in front of her children. Mm-hmm. And so we're at the place where that ordeal has happened. And now Keila is in the situation where this meaningful partner has said, hey, let's work it out, with a gun on the console. Just want to make sure everybody's catching up to where we are. So after, as Keila has said, a number of red flags, and some people might say a brick wall falling.
Right. It was a brick wall.
A number of different signals that are signaling you this is not safe, and this is not what you deserve. And I want to make sure we talk a little bit about that. Mm-hmm. But this is not what you deserve. And you said, okay, Lord, I know I can't go back, but you were in the presence of mind to say, okay, I need to feed him a line so that I can get back to safety.
Right.
And at that point is when you knew that you had to leave. Is that right?
At that point, I knew I wasn't going back. So we kind of jumped ahead. So when I decided to leave, and anybody who's been through a number of abuse, I went through a serious deep depression. So severe that I had decided that I just wanted to end my life. And I remember I was sitting on my kitchen floor, and I had taken out a knife. Now, I think back on this, and I'm like, that was dumb, because I would have been torturing myself. But anyway, let's move ahead. I was sitting there with a knife, and I was like, I just don't want to live here anymore. I'm like, I don't know. I can't get anything right in this situation. And he came into the house while I was sitting there. And I mean, I'm bawling, but I'm bawling by myself. I mean, I'm crying. And I'm like, and he literally looked at me and said, well, if you're going to kill yourself, don't do it while I'm here. And I remember thinking to myself, now, that's got to be dumb for me to kill myself for a person that don't even care whether I do it or not. So I kill myself, and he lives and go on with his life. And at that moment, I called my dad, and I was like, I can't stay. And I swear, my dad was on the east side, and I think he got there in 10 minutes. And I packed a few things, and my dad looked at me and he said, pack everything you're gonna take because you're not coming back. And even though I listened to his words, in my mind, I was still just hoping that there would still be some hope, but I did leave. That was my leaving point.
Yeah. I'm gonna go to the comment for a second. Christina says, what about him did you love to keep life sailing with the abuse? When I was abused, I loved my abuser's attention, affection. It was very toxic. Was there something about him that made you keep going back?
So about him, which will kind of break some timeline situations, but I had a crush on this guy since I had been 12 years old. And I just decided that I just wanted him to be the one. And I felt like he was the one. I like whatever I endure, I'm just gonna just endure it because I just love him. But in the process of that, I was loving myself less. And I know a lot of people don't like to, they think that line is cliche-ish, but when you start loving yourself less, you start accepting more. And that's what started happening. I started falling apart.
Yeah, when you start loving yourself less, you start accepting more. Yeah, I think that was beautifully said. Thank you for that. Valerie Colbert Osamwady has joined us. Christina Smith says prayer works. Vivian Morrison has joined us. Katrina Guffey says that he beat her whole pregnancy. Wow. Was there an age difference between the two of you? Asking.
No, we are 6 months apart. He was 6 months older than me.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about having a plan.
Let's talk about having a plan.
Tanya Holson Dixon joined us. Sakina Queen Onyx J. Thank you for joining us. Kay Marie, thank you for joining us. Thanks to God, you are here to tell your story. Amen to that. Amen to that.
Amen.
Again, I often, not as eloquently as you said, but I often wonder if people really understand their value when they're going into relationships. And I often tell Autumn, the man is not the prize, the woman is the prize. And if the man isn't willing to treat the woman as a prized possession, it's the wrong place for you to be, because everything for the woman designed you to think that you're the prize.
Right.
So that's why there's these forces of darkness to convince you that you're not the prize.
Exactly.
The woman's for the glory of man. Everything about how God designed the woman was for the man to regard her as a prize, not as a trophy, because people get that mixed up.
Exactly.
But as something of great value. And I think, so there's so much work, right, to try to get the woman to believe that she is not of value and not the prize. I think it's so important for people to hear that at some point you valued you less in the whole of together something that really wasn't serving you well. And so,
the thing is, when people, when a person realizes that they can treat you that way, it just gets worse. So once respect is discarded, it sets the tone of what they can do more, of more that they can do. And then it's almost like a person on drugs. They start off maybe just smoking marijuana, but then they need another high. So they go to the next drug, and then they need another high. So they go to the next drug. And that's what abuse is. It starts off here and you accepted it at that level. Now let's turn it up a notch. And that's basically what happens.
Yeah, before I talk about the plan, or you talk about the plan, I'm wondering, because your daughter did have some experience, seeing or hearing or whatever she experienced. Now that she's about to be an adult, and I saw the picture, she's a cutie pie.
Yes.
It's going to be boys and men that are going to be trying to talk to her. So what have you done to help prepare her because she is as beautiful as you were when you were that age.
Thank you.
She is going to be articulate and smart, but so were you.
Mm-hmm.
And so what are you helping her to see or do differently so that she doesn't love herself less and accept more?
Now, one thing that I love about my daughter is, obviously, because I went through that situation, she did not know the situation. I've never shared anything, personal experiences outside of what she saw with her. And I've never even spoken a negative word about him to her.
Okay.
But what I did do is, even a little child, like even when little boys would pick with her on the playground, I'm like, don't accept that. Deal with that. You make sure you let the teacher know. Do not let a little boy pull your hair. Do not let a little boy hit you, because that all, I know that if they say that the little boy like you, but at the end of the day, those are little subtle things of being bullied. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I can say, as an adult, because before I had this show with you, I had to sit down with her and the party person to let them know that I was going to be doing this. And we were able to go into some detail, not a lot of detail, but some detail. And I'm proud of her, because she's got her head on straight. And some of the things that she said, she was like, Mom, I would not tolerate that. I know it's so much easier said than done, but what I like is that I have kind of drilled that in her from my own experience. And I don't want her to be a hardened heart, but I want her to know that she don't have to accept it. So yes, that's a conversation all the time.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. Tawana Graham has joined us. Yvonne Garrison has joined us. Katrina says, I'm literally in tears right now. Bless your heart. Deshaun Tatum has joined us. Yes. And so let's talk about the exit plan. I think, and I just want to ask you this, before you have a plan, do you really have to have a reason to leave?
Okay, so for you to have a plan, yes, you have to have a reason. Yeah. And if you don't know your why, then you won't come up with a good plan. Mm-hmm. So I say for people who, because like I was fortunate, I had a job, I had my own car, I had my own means. So I was able to move in with my mother and stack up some cash. Some people are not able to do that. So what I say is you have to keep some supportive people around you. You have to be willing to open up to people. Now, some people are afraid for their lives if, something happened. I literally had to go down to the police station and put out a PPO against this person because, they, like I said, they had never spoke the words, I'm going to kill you, but they would always make sure that they would, and I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, but show their guns to me to let me know that, step out of line or whatever. And that started making me fearful for my life, because I was just nervous. So I had to put a PPO out. But if you are afraid, you have to start getting some paper trails. I never wanted to have a paper trail because I didn't want evidence. I didn't want it to be on paper. But this doctor, I went to the doctor for some other injuries that had happened during this situation. And she made me like my mother type style, like you need to fill this out. And so I filled it out. And that out of the one document that I filled out when I went to the court for my PPO, it was the only document that I needed. Because when I went to the doctor to get a copy, they said, well, we need evidence. I wouldn't have had any if she wouldn't have made me write that. And what she wrote in those notes was so detailed that the judge granted it right there. And you got to have documents. You have to have stuff on paper. You have to have people who will help you out. you know, and you have to trust somebody. If there's somebody out there that you can trust, if there is not, find a shelter, you know, find somebody, but you have to get yourself out of those situations.
And you mentioned that you went to the doctor for some other injuries.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the worst? Was the wrist breaking the worst injury?
So so like I've had, you know, face bruises, obviously soreness, you know, from fighting. I would probably say that the wrist physically might have been the worst, but mentally is probably was the worst. Mentally was the worst.
And what would you say mentally that happened that was the worst? What was it?
I think because like that young lady asked that question about losing yourself, because you lose yourself and then you become this downtrodden person. I'll never forget this coworker. He and his wife they kind of had adopted me. I was young, well, younger. And he would always call me Sunshine, because he would call me, or Sparkle Eyes, because he was like, your eyes dance to me. He was like, I love your eyes, they dance. He was like, when I see you, you know, you just a happy person. And one day I was working and he literally came to me and he said, you know, your eyes have lost the sparkle. And I was like, oh, he was like, but whatever it is, I hope, you know, you do something about it to get that sparkle back. He was like, and that's whatever it is. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I listened, but people do take notice of that. Those were the things that started to change within me. Those were the emotional things that I didn't even know that was taking over my outward appearance, you know. And like I said, the beauty, it doesn't matter. It's never been an issue for a guy to come and talk to me, you know, like, you know, hey, you know, how you doing? But because I wasn't feeling great about myself, I'm like, you know, why is he talking to me? You know, he probably, and then he had convinced me that they would only talk to me because they just only want sex from you. They don't really want to talk to you. It's just a sex thing. Nobody's going to really like you once they get to know you, you know.
And during the time that he is abusing you mentally and physically and emotionally, are you all still engaging in sex?
Yes. Yeah, pretty much so. Because I felt like that was I don't know. I felt like that was our only true connection at the time. I substituted the sex for love, you know, which a lot of people do often.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We talked earlier and you talked about, because you had a job and a car, but you talked about, hey, get a part-time job at Target or do something, start to build your plan. So let's go back there. What would you suggest to women about, because there are some women who don't work, they're in the home, homemakers, and there might be some who have built a life where they can't maintain it without that second income. So what do you advise to women who are ready to get out?
Okay, so if you do not have a job, you aren't working right now, the internet offers so much for people to make money. You can make money literally sitting at home with your fingertips. I say get serious about wanting to leave, start looking into some things that are start generating some money so you can make your exit plan. You may have to live with some family members for a little while. And it's all uncomfortable. I didn't want to move back in with my mother. You know, they made it as comfortable as they could for me. You know, they didn't bother me, but just the point of having to go back home in a sense of, if you can catch the picture, of having your tail tucked in between your legs. But just knowing that you are supported. But start executing a plan. Once you get the mentality and mindset, you are never trapped or stuck anywhere. You are there because you want to be there. And I know that that's a harsh thing to say, but a person that's been through it, you're there because you want to be there. When you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, you'll start working that plan out. I went without a lot for a long time. And people, you know, I'm not a person that go around telling my business, you know, oh girl, you know, I didn't have no groceries yesterday. I don't do stuff like that. I just keep the ball rolling. You know, I had people who literally said groceries on my porch because they didn't even know God just told them to do that. Like put some groceries on her porch because I was going to work this situation out. And regardless to what I had to do, my daughter was my why. And I wanted to make sure she was safe. So yes, she did eat some ramen noodles and she did eat some macaroni in them little cups. But guess what? She was happy watching her little cartoons, sitting in front of the TV, and that's all I was concerned about. And sometimes we have to go it out. I was driving some of the best cars at that time. I was living in a neighborhood that I wanted to live in. I had to give all of that up. And I felt like I was going back to ground zero. But what I learned that in my rock bottom is where my beginning started. It started over for me. So what's all of that luxury if you're not happy? You know, you got to get back into, it's got to be worth it. You got to make it worth it. And your question was, do you need a reason? Yes, you need a reason, because if you don't have a reason, then you just out there just shooting darts at nothing. You need to, your reason, your why. My daughter was my why. You need to find out your why. I didn't want her growing up in dysfunction.
And so you put yourself a plan together. And when you moved back with your mom, because I guess you had to tell her and your dad what was going on, what was their reaction?
Okay, so because I had a girlfriend that went behind, well, I'm not gonna say went behind my back now. That's what I called it then.
Okay.
She called my parents and told them, look, she over here going on in this situation.
Okay.
So they did somewhat know. They did not know a lot of details, like some of these stories they're hearing for the first time, but they knew that I needed to be out of that situation. And, you know, like parents do, they were like, come home, you know, just come home. And that was part of my plan. But what I did know, that if I did not have my parents, I would have been saving up a down or a payment for an apartment. I knew that I wasn't gonna stay. And I think you have to choose life, and the life you choose may be your own. It may be your child's, or sacrificing the life of your abuser. Because like I said, there was one night I literally looked at him when I got fed up, and I'm like, somebody tonight is going to die. And I promise it will not be me, because I have a child to raise. Those were my words. And when you get to that point, you gotta go. You gotta go.
So understand your why, stack your money, find a place of safety. What else would you advise to someone who is ready to get out, but they don't know what to do?
So if you're, what I had told you earlier, if you have a volunteer stalker, and when I say volunteer stalker is when I reference that is a person that you allow to kind of stalk you in your space because you think it's kind of cute that they want to be everywhere that you're at. And then you start realizing that it's unhealthy, that it's not healthy. You have to create boundaries. So abusers do not like boundaries because they are used to being in control of all of the situations. So when those boundaries start, they become more angry, and then they become a little bit more volatile. So you have to file your PPOs, file your restraining orders, know where you're going, know where you're at. We have locators on our phones now. Turn locators on so you can know where people at all the time. You know, it's so many things out here to help us now. I mean, even since I left, it's a lot more resources out here. I was just fortunate to have a family member, but you can do it. I just want them to know that they can do it. It's okay to sit on the floor in an apartment with no furniture, and it's okay to eat a slice of cheese on a piece of bread. Some things you have to sacrifice to get to the better things in life. And I look at people when they say to me now, like, oh, you're doing so great. You driving such and such car and you living in such and such. But I'm like, boy, If you only knew what I went without, you know what I mean? Like I worked my way back up to this mentally and physically. So it takes time, and don't expect things to happen overnight. Go to a counselor, get counseling. I went to a counselor and I made sure that not only was my counselor a Christian, but they were a real counselor, like with a degree in counseling, because I didn't want to just be batted down with the word. I needed somebody who understood what was going on up here. And she broke those things down to me, like, in order for you to start building yourself up, this has to take place. So you need counseling. Get your children counseling, get yourself counseling. And there's free counseling out there too, because guess what? I could not afford a counselor. So I found free counseling. And that's what you do.
Okay. Now, Tanya Hosley is saying, you can say my name. Our friendship is better than ever. And I will do it again. Love you. You are extending people's faith, giving hope.
Well, Tanya,
you rock. And Tanya, I did tell her this part of what you said. I told her that there are many people watching who haven't found out the reason why or gotten the courage to leave. And I wanted them to hear her say, her outcome could have been the same as her girlfriend. Her girlfriend who made the pact with her to live is not living, except in her memory. And so you're right, she's saving lives. And I'm glad that you're the kind of friend that told. Do you wish you had more people in your life who would have picked up on the things going on and would have told?
You know, it's so funny that you asked me that, because honestly, I honestly like the way that I did it, because, and I say that to say this, when I decided to leave, and unfortunately, I was blessed to leave with my life, obviously, but I didn't have a lot of people in my ear. My decision was my decision. It was because I was tired. Now, I don't encourage people to do that, because I do feel like you do need somebody who's going to be a little bit more real with you about what you need to do. Don't harbor all that stuff in. I started losing hair. I mean, I had to go to dermatologists. I was just stressed out, gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight, because I was trying to deal with all of that on my own. But you don't have to. I don't encourage anybody to do that. Now, for me, myself, I like that I kept the outsiders out, because I felt like there was nobody able to judge, you know, the situation. Or I know this may sound crazy, but as protective as I was, or even him, you know what I mean? Because I remember having a family member literally tell me when she found out that, because a lot of my family didn't even find out until it was actually finito, it was done. And they're like, what? You know, and they're like, well, if you had come to me, you know, it probably would have worked out. And I'm thinking, you don't have a clue as to what I went through. Like, you literally don't even have a clue, because I never wanted to tarnish his name. And I never wanted to make him, you know, even though he was the bad guy, I never wanted to make him look like the bad guy.
Why is that?
Because I feel like people should make assessments of people for themselves. Okay. And I did not want to use my story to turn people against him.
Got it. Michelle Pryor saying, how long did the counseling last? Do you still see him or her, the counselor?
I do not see the counselor anymore, because I felt the counseling lasted probably for about a year. And this situation there has been some years in between. So it's been several years. So no, I do not see the counselor for that anymore. But I do try to help encourage other women that I know are going through these situations, because they need to know, you know, they are always so shocked when I tell them that I went through it. And they're like, I just can't even believe it. You don't even seem like the type. And I'm like, I don't know. Is there a type? Is there a type, you know?
And did he have counseling? No, did he go to counseling?
So no, because he did not feel like he needed it. And that's where you have to decide that, is this if a person doesn't see that anything is broken, they can't start fixing it.
And do you
But
know whether or not he has moved on to other relationships?
no, he has not,
Okay.
because no, he hasn't.
Okay.
But he does apologize profusely now. You know, even in the recent times, he always say, you know, you really, now the compliments are more like, you really turned out to be such a great person. You know, you really, you know, because what you thought you were going to beat down, you know, which you at one point he did, you know, God had another plan.
Yeah. Linda Phillips has joined us, Marilyn Hamilton. We're talking to Keila Brintley about her story of surviving domestic violence and abuse. We're at 9:39, and Keila, I want you, if you will, just look into the camera.
Okay.
Talk to women who haven't gotten their why, and they, like you, are keeping it close to the vest. Some of them are embarrassed that they are allowing it to happen. Some of them don't feel like they'd have anywhere to go. Some of them are at the place where you are, you just resigned to, this is how it's going to be. I want you to talk to them about why they should get out.
I'm going to say this. You have to love yourself more than you love anything. And when I say love yourself, I'm even talking about even your own children, because at some point I loved my daughter enough to leave, but I had to love myself enough to stay gone, if that makes sense. And you have to decide that if you are going to leave, you don't want to look back. And I always think about the Bible scripture, Lot's wife, because I feel like sometime if I had went back, I wouldn't even be here to tell this story, because I don't know if I had went back to that situation, it could have been the end of me. You know, things were not getting better. So you have to get a plan. Find out your reason why you want to leave, for your own safety, for your children's safety, for your sanity, for your peace. And so you can just be a better human being in this earth. I mean, when you're walking around and you're in that fog, you really, you aren't helping anybody else, because you got so much turmoil going on the inside of you. And you just want that peace to settle in your spirit. Once you get a plan, there are women's shelters out there if you have nowhere to go, because some people don't have family members to go to. There are women's shelters out there that will protect you. Get a PPO order or a restraining order if you are afraid. If you cannot afford to serve them the PPO order, find a friend. I had a friend serve them. You know, like, I can't find them because he keep dodging me, but guess what? They made sure they found him one day and was like, here, you've been served, you know? So there are a lot of resources, but I will say this: when you are absolutely ready and tired to leave, and tired of going through what you're going through, you will find a way. And there's a saying that where there's a will, there's a way. You have to allow yourself to be stronger than the thinking about what you are going to not have. And that's if you're in a marriage, the embarrassment of knowing that the people on the outside is going to know what's happening, the divorce. You know, all of those people over time, guess what? They forget about it. You know what I'm saying? Then you stuck trying to pretend to have this old pretty life, but a year from now, they done forgot about it. They done moved on to the next person that's going through a divorce. You know what I mean? So you can't think about the other people. You have to think about yourself. And that's what's important. And that's what I want them to know. You can do it. I did it. I literally had lights turned off, electric. I mean, nobody knew. My own parents didn't even know I was sitting over there in the dark, because I'm not the type to go knock on somebody's door for money. I'm going to just make it happen. And I think once you're willing to just make it happen and make your life greater, you'll find out that you can do this life. You can do it without that person. And a lot of times people are afraid to leave. They don't want to be alone. But I would rather be alone than to keep continually being abused, beat, abused, and mentally abused. At some point in time, that insecurity have to you have to drive that out and just believe in yourself. You can do it. Any woman out there that is listening to me, you can do it. I did it.
And Keila, what would you say to a man out here who has begun verbally abusing or emotionally abusing the woman that he professes to love?
So, like I said in the beginning, first of all, that is not love. Okay. And I know that some women have, if he don't yell at me or don't say anything wrong, then he must don't love me. But like I used the example before, love is taking care. When you love something, you take care of it. You cherish it. I mean, you water it. Like my daughter, I'm gonna make sure she eat. I'm gonna make sure she get the proper sleep. I'm gonna make sure she signed up for school. I'm not around here tearing her down, because guess what? I love her and I want the best things out of life for her. Somebody hitting you, mentally abusing you, that is not love. It is not love. I know we want to mask it up and put it in pretty boxes to believe that it is, but it is not love. He does not love you. And really, it's an ego trip thing. He loves himself more. He loves being in control more, but he certainly do not love you.
Well, Keila Brintley, this has been an awesome show. I want people to see that Keila Brintley is a beautiful, intelligent, caring sister who opened her heart to share that this could happen to anybody.
To anybody.
And you can be in a situation where you're just trying to love the one that you're with and find yourself loving yourself less and accepting more.
Exactly.
And I hope that you see this story and share it widely and understand that if Keila Brintley can get out, make a plan and get out, find her reason why, document, which is another thing I think is important today. If you're getting bruises and broken wrist, and hopefully you're not, but if you're having these things or incidents, documentation, so that you will be able to get a protective order if needed, or whatever protection you need. But you can leave your situation and move on to a better life. Keila Brintley did it, and you can do it too.
You can. Yeah. I believe in you.
Yeah. Where can they follow you? I know you have a podcast. Tell us a little bit about that and how they can follow you, because I believe that there will be women, like I told you before, though, there will be men who will inbox me and ask, are you single? So go ahead and let the brothers know.
I am single.
Okay. So you heard it. She's single.
So before I say this, you did ask another question about the men, who have found themselves in this situation. If this is you and you are listening, and it's a relationship that you actually do want to work with, because I know some people do, please get help. And you have to admit to yourself that you are wrong. You have to admit that there is something going on the inside of you that needs work. And I believe if you want the help and you go get the help, you can change. I do believe that people can change, but you have to want to change. Nobody is your punching bag. Everybody keep their hands to themselves. But if you find yourself in those situations, get anger management counseling. Do the work for yourself and spare a life, because you might think you could outpower her, but it may be your own life you're sparing by getting help. And I cannot stress that enough. But you can follow me. My podcast is All the Way There Podcast. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and we pretty much go there about everything: women topics, politics, racism, anything, we go there. So you can find me there.
All right. Keila Brintley, thank you so much for giving us the exclusive opportunity. I'm just honored that you would open up and share so transparently of the things that have occurred in your life and that you have become victorious over.
I have.
I'm just so honored that you shared this. And I know that there are many women and men who are helped by this. And I hope that some will connect with you. I think we'll have you back, because I think as women are starting to talk in the comments, people do need a place where they can talk to somebody without judgment, because that's one of the things that we get lost in, right? We get lost in, well, why did you do that? Or why did you let somebody do that to you? Feeling judged keeps people in the closet. It keeps people from sharing things that might help them get the exodus or deliverance that they need. And so wherever we can create a safe space for women to talk, I'd love to have you back.
I would love to come back, because it can be such a broad subject. And anybody who's listening, I will have Kaylin Risker Fahy on my podcast, who also has another phenomenal testimony of how she came out of an abusive relationship as well. And she is very active in the community with her Safe House project. And I would encourage people to listen in on Sunday to hear her, and they can get more information. But adding to what you said, I would love to come back. It's such a broad topic, and prayer does work. Like I said, I didn't want to run anybody from the church. Prayer does work. I believe in prayer. I believe that there were people praying for me. I am praying for you. I am praying for any woman listening through this thing. I'm praying for women, period. But for you tonight, my prayer is for you, that you can do this. God will give you a plan. You don't even have to create your own. He'll give you one, and you can walk this thing out.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Keila.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you so much. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks.
And that was our guest, Keila Brintley. I hope that you will share this widely with all of the women in your circle and all of the brothers in your circle, because here's one of the things that I've come to know, that many times we as bystanders see and hear of things that we know are not right, but we say that that's not our business. And so we don't get involved. And sometimes I think in the great memory of, I'm thinking of Harriet Tubman, sometimes you got to have code and safe spaces that people can land to let them know, I see you. And when you're ready to get out, I'm here to help you. And so if there are brothers and you have a sister, you have an auntie, you have a cousin who seems not to be, as you heard Keila's coworker said to her, the sparkle in her eyes are gone. Or you have someone who's changed their countenance or disposition and something just doesn't seem right. Make yourself a committee of one, not to be in their business, but to signal them, to let them know you see something's not right and you're available. Because it's going to take a broader collective community to stand up and say, domestic violence is not acceptable. It would be the same in our discourse and discussions around racism, until we come together and stand up and say it, and say, we see you and we're going to hold you accountable for what you do. We can't expect the change. And even more so, it's harder to empower people with the courage to stand forward in their truth to change. Everybody wants deep down inside to have a good life, but it takes courage and support to stand forward when you're not experiencing what you feel like would be a better life. And for those of you that don't think that you deserve it, I don't think that you will find a more beautiful woman than Keila, or as beautiful a woman. And you have to feel that beauty inside. You heard Keila say, I started loving me less, so I accepted more abuse. And if that's you, you got to get about the business of loving yourself And I know the church doesn't always get it all right, but God does. He is the quintessential love. And he wants you to love in response to his love, his very essence of love, to love him with everything you have and your neighbor as yourself, which means you got to do a lot of loving on yourself so that you get back to the place where you value you and that you affirm and attest that you deserve the very best. Don't resign. Don't give up. And if you have given up, get up. As Keila put that knife down, because that person that you're trying to take yourself away from maybe isn't at the capacity to love you or him or herself for you to withdraw yourself from this world. He or she is not a reason for you to no longer exist at their hands or yours. Be about the business of upping your love game for yourself and getting your game plan to get out of abusive relationships. Keila Brintley said it, you can do it. And you don't even have to come up with a plan. God will give you one. I'm Marcus Holmes, and I feel so honored and blessed that Keila would share with us her first public. She shared with many women one-on-one, but her first public transparent discussion about her journey to survival. She's surviving, and I would even submit to you, she's thriving. And I invite you to join her and do the same. If you need help, inbox us so that we can get you to resources that will help you. There is help available to you, many free resources, and we'll put some together so that we can post them on the page. But if you need help and you don't know how to leave, talk to somebody. If you don't feel like you can trust the Love and Stuff inbox, it's the most confidential place I know. Get with somebody that you can trust. Reach out to them and start to work on your reasons why and make for yourself a better life. I'm Marcus Holmes. This has been a great edition of Love and Stuff. We're here every Tuesday at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. Join us on the gratefulness journey. We'll drop the link in the comments if you haven't joined it. It's just 3 things that you're grateful for, spoken aloud every day, share with 3 people. After 30 days, you're on a journey, my friend, to power your existence. Thanks so much. Have a great night.